I am the town moderator until the end of this meeting. Some people are saying they can't hear me.
Can you hear him?
Is this mic? Is this better?
Better. Try again. Turn it up.
Okay. My name is Quentin Blaine. I am the town moderator until the end of this meeting, and Bob Clay will take over after that. If you haven't already, please make sure you check in with the supervisors of the checklist. And everyone who is a Plymouth voter, registered voter, should have a card like this, and you should have a little packet of yes/no ballots in case we need those. Before I open the meeting, I'd like to go through the election results from Tuesday's election. For the ballot for the town of Plymouth, for selectmen, there were 2 vacancies. Mike Conklin received 413 votes. Armin Gerard received 336 votes. Homer Ahern received 228 votes. And I declared that Mike Conklin and Armin Gerard were duly elected. And the write-ins for that office were 1 vote each for Tim Keith and Jim Mayhew. For treasurer, Carol Garrity received 530 votes, no write-ins. I declare Carol Garrity elected as town treasurer. Town moderator, Robert Clay, 530 votes. There were 4 write-ins for Quentin Blaine, 1 write-in for John Boyle. I declare Robert Clay to be elected as town moderator.
Cemetery trustee, 1 year, William Bolton Jr., 516 votes. Write-in votes, 1 for John Wood, 1 for John Kelly. I declare William R. Bolton Jr. duly elected. Trustee of trust funds, William Hoole, 497 votes. Write-ins, 1 for Chris Wood, 1 for Robert Clay. I declare William Hoole duly elected as trustee. Supervisor of the checklist, Mary Nelson, 526 votes. No write-ins. I declare Mary Nelson duly elected. Library trustee, there were 2 positions. Allison Estes Brown received 496 votes. Kathleen Wood Hedberg received 469 votes. There were a single write-in vote each for Tana White, Carol Mosman, and Mary Baldwin. I declare Allison Estes Brown and Kathleen Wood Hedberg duly elected. For the Plymouth School District election results, there were 2 openings on the school board. Kathleen Wood Hedberg received 475 votes. John Scheinman received 498 votes. There was Joan Randlett, Patrice Scott, and Mary Baldwin. Each received 1 write-in vote. I declare Kathleen Wood Hedberg and John Scheinman duly elected. For moderator, Quentin Blaine, 523 votes. Homer Ahern, John Boyle, John Scheinman, and Neil McIver each received 1 write-in vote. Robert Clay received 2 write-in votes. I declare Quentin Blaine duly elected. School District Clerk, Susan Jane Clay, 517 votes, no write-ins. I declare Susan Jane Clay duly elected. School District Treasurer, Susan Jane Clay, 510 votes. Carol Elliott, 2 write-in votes. I declare Susan Jane Clay duly elected. And then for the Pemmy Baker Regional School District, the total votes, there were open positions in Campton. Peter Pettengill received 2,325 votes. I declare Peter Pettengill duly elected as school board member from Campton. For Holden, a school board member, Ross Deachman received 2,310 votes. I declare Ross Deachman duly elected. For the Plymouth school board member for the Pemmy Baker Regional School District, Maureen Ebner received 2,272 votes. I declare Maureen Ebner duly elected. For the Rumney School Board position on the Pemmy Baker Regional School District, Ed Guerrero received 2,126 votes. For moderator, Quentin Blaine received 2,468 votes. I declare Ed Guerrero duly elected as the Rumney member of the school board and Quentin Blaine duly elected as moderator. For the warrant articles on the Pemmy Baker Regional School District, the renovations to the Center for the Technical Education, there were 1,543 yes, 1,151 no. The percentage was 57.28%. It needed 60%, so Article 1 failed. The tuition contracts, the yes vote, Article 2, warrant Article 2 was 2,159 yes, 512 no. Article 2 on tuition contracts passed. On the contingency fund, warrant Article 3, 2,065 yes votes, 584 no votes. The warrant Article 3 passed. On the special education borrowing, warrant Article 4, 1,965 yes votes, 690 no votes. Warrant Article 4 passed. On warrant Article 5, support staff agreement, there was 1,785 yes votes, 941 no votes. Warrant Article 5 passed. Article 6, which was the budget for the Pemmy-Baker Regional School District, there were 2,008 yes votes, 644 no votes. Warrant Article 6 on the budget article passed. That does it for the election results. And if we could open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. There's a flag right to the left side of the front table, and there's one on the wall. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A few more rules for the meeting. Each time you speak, please go up to the microphone and identify yourself each time you speak. All questions should be directed through the moderator. No back and forth on questions. You're speaking to the meeting when you're speaking. You're not speaking to an individual in the meeting. And by the time when we get to Article 5, I shall endeavor to remember to recognize the Budget Committee members present and get their decision on the town budget. The rules that I've prepared for running meetings are published in the town report. I don't have the page numbers with me right now, but if you want to know what the rules are by which I intend to run the meeting, they are in the town. What's that? They start at page 104. So we will start with the warrant. We will start with Article 2. Article 1 was the election, then you just heard the results of those. Article 2, to see if the town will vote to pass the following resolution. Whereas, the founders intended that government should be answerable to, controlled by, and dependent upon to the people alone, James Madison, Federalist Number 52, 1788. And whereas, the influence of corporate and other moneyed interest on the political process has diminished the dependency on the people alone, be it resolved that the voters of Plymouth, New Hampshire instruct Plymouth state representatives to call for and Plymouth's congressional representatives to propose an amendment to the United States Constitution declaring that the rights and protections afforded to citizens by the constitutions of the United States apply only to
natural persons, and the federal and state legislatures shall have the authority to regulate and limit, but not
ban all expenditures from any source supporting or opposing the election of any candidate for federal or state office or for any initiative or referendum. Plymouth state legislators are instructed to ratify such a constitutional amendment. If a majority of voters support the question, the Plymouth Select Board shall immediately and on the 21st day of January of each year, until Congress has proposed an amendment and such amendment has been ratified by the state, send a written notice to Plymouth's congressional delegation and to Plymouth state legislators, informing them of the instructions from their constituents. This article was inserted by petition, and the warrant notes that it is advisory only. Is there a motion? The article's been moved and seconded. Is there a petitioner here who would like to speak to the article?
My name is Peter Martin. I live on Old Hebron Road. Can everybody hear me? Hello? Okay. The 2010 Supreme Court Citizens United decision that corporations are people and that money is speech has unleashed a tsunami of special interest cash into our national, state, and local electoral processes. The results have been predictable and very damaging to our democracy, giving corporations, unions, and other special interest entities with deep pockets an exaggerated influence in the outcome of elections. That court decision also stated that corporations are people. That decision, along with their rights under the Interstate Commerce Clause of the Constitution, gives them far more power to control events affecting our communities and the environment than real people have. The danger of the Citizens United decision has been recognized nationwide. 16 states have already passed resolutions asking Congress to amend the Constitution, declaring that only actual human beings are people and that money is not speech. 13 more states are presently considering like legislation. Every state in New England, except New Hampshire, has already passed similar resolutions. 72% of all New Hampshire citizens of all political persuasions are opposed to the Citizens United decision. And this year, 50 towns have warrant articles like ours to overturn this damaging court decision. As the late Senator Rudman said, quote, individuals on both sides of the table recognize that larger donations effectively purchase greater benefits for donors. Large soft money contributions, in fact, distort the legislative process. They affect what gets done and how it gets done. They affect whom senators and House members see, whom they spend their time with, what input they get, and, make no mistake about it, this money affects outcomes as well. Representative Bernie Sanders of Vermont stated, we have got to do everything we can to overturn this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision that a handful of billionaires cannot dictate public policy. Our federal Constitution begins with these 3 words, we the people. It does not say we the corporations. In fact, corporations are not mentioned at all because they are only legal constructs and not people. The wise men who wrote our Constitution could not foretell the future, but they knew with certainty that changing times and circumstances would necessitate amendments. This amendment mechanism for change has already been used 17 times since the original Bill of Rights was adopted. Sometimes even the Supreme Court gets it wrong. The Citizens United decision is obviously one of those occasions. But the people can and should correct the error. Please vote yes on Warrant Article 2, which instructs our legislators to call for an amendment to overturn the Citizens United ruling. Thank you.
Mary?
Thank you. I'm Mary Cooney. I'm one of your state legislators representing the towns of Holderness, Plymouth, and Hebron, and I live in Plymouth. And I co-sponsored a resolution, HCR 2, last year in the House that passed the House, and that pretty much mirrors this language also. And Peter Martin has set out the case beautifully for passing this warrant article, demonstrating that a vast majority of citizens across the country want to overturn this decision by the Supreme Court. I will also state the obvious. We hate being bombarded with political messages all throughout October. We know that many of those messages are not truthful, and there is no way of controlling that fact. And we know that many of those messages are, and that our delegation must spend much of their time raising money from wealthy donors to finance their campaigns. Estimates range from $7 to $11 billion was spent on the 2012 elections, 2 years after Citizens United decision. This story began with the Powell Memorandum in the 1960s, which advocated that business should be more aggressive in asserting their rights. Lewis Powell was a corporate lawyer. It was the beginning of business lobbyists in Washington and a rise of influence of corporations on politicians. Lewis Powell became a Supreme Court justice who was moderate on social issues, but an advocate for big business. Surprisingly, Chief Justice Rehnquist voiced the opposite opinion, that if we take down the barriers to unlimited spending, elections will become shams. Now we have Chief Justice Roberts, John Roberts, who thinks as Justice Powell did and led the decision in Citizens United. He actually advocated expanding the ruling beyond what the plaintiffs were asking for. The amount of money flowing into campaigns has resulted in the extremely wealthy and corporations controlling the country's political agenda. Unless a corporation is a B corporation under charter not only to benefit the shareholders, but its mission to use the power of business to solve social and environmental problems, a typical corporation has under law a fiduciary responsibility to maximize profits for its shareholders, not benefit citizens, not benefit the environment, not benefit the public good. It is therefore absurd that we should grant such entities, creations of the state, the rights granted only to people in the United States Constitution. Corporations are not mentioned in the Constitution, as Peter had said. As I said, this warrant article joins over 50 in the state, directing its elected officials to support the effort to overturn Citizens United. Sometimes the best messages are conceived of at the grassroots level, gaining momentum at the best forum the country has to offer, the town meeting. We have the opportunity to join this movement and let Congress, the President, and the rest of the country know that New Hampshire agrees that corporations are not people and money is not free speech. Money has taken the voice away from those who vote. It has pushed the people out of the democratic process. We need to bring it back. As the late Warren Rugman said, Supreme Court opinion notwithstanding, corporations are not defined as people under the Constitution, and free speech can hardly be called free when only the rich can be heard. And please vote for Article 2.
Frank.
My name is Frank McCloud. My question is how does this affect nonprofit organizations, the NRA, National School Boards Association, the other people that are lobbying and donating money? Can somebody answer that? Or unions? How would this resolution affect them?
My name is Pamela Martin. As I understand it, this affects all entities that are corporations. That's nonprofits, profits, labor unions, AARP, the Nature Conservancy. It would affect everyone that's considered a corporation. I just want to point out that 33 towns already in New Hampshire have passed a very similar resolution or a similar warrant article as we have today. And I want to make another point that if towns have a long history in New Hampshire of dictating public policy or national policy. In 1983, 197 towns passed resolutions on acid rain, which successfully pushed legislation to save our forests and waters. In 2007, 14 towns passed resolutions on marriage equality. In 2007, 162 towns resolved to establish state energy commitment committees, which were then established. And also in 2007, 14 towns passed fair tax resolutions. We've passed 27 amendments have been ratified in this country, including the freedom of religion, the right to bear arms, amendment to prohibit illegal searches and seizures, due process, amendment for fair and speedy trials, prohibit cruel and unusual punishment, the abolition of slavery, civil rights, black suffrage, women's suffrage, and end the poll tax. These are all amendments to the Constitution. Those are just some of them. And I'd just like to mention one more quote from George Washington, the first president of the United States, who stated in his 1796 farewell address that the basis of our political system is the right of the people to make and alter their constitutions of government. Thank you.
Is there further discussion on Article 2? Patrice?
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. Thank you. I, too, am concerned about big money in elections, but I know there have been several successful attempts in different states, Maine being one, of passing their own election laws. And I would, things like this make me very nervous, and not having had the chance to look into the case itself and heard anything about the movement prior to coming here this evening. I just see it's a little scrambled about how the way government works. And I appreciate Mary Cooney coming forward saying she passed something or offered something at the state level. I think there are appropriate channels to pursue, and Mary has already pursued what she can do at our state level. I don't think that we in the town of Plymouth, we have to remember we're one small town, and we can't tell our congressional representatives what to do for all of the towns in New Hampshire. They have to have a hearing themselves and figure out for themselves what the larger constituency would want. So I would just, I personally would not support this article and would just caution people there are also some benefits to corporations being considered people under the law, and every single state has its own definition of a corporation in person. So would you be able, if you were injured by a corporation, and we asked the Supreme Court to pass this amendment, would you have any recourse in suing them anymore? Would you be able to reach them because of the way corporations are set up to insulate themselves? Those are questions we would have to ask, and I just simply don't know what the ramifications of something this broad would be, but I also feel that it's not being done in the appropriate manner. We can encourage at the local level our state legislators what to do, and certainly individually and collectively we can speak for the town of Plymouth, but we're only one town that our congressional representatives have to listen to, and they have to take into consideration everybody's feelings. So it's just, I just don't have a good feeling about this.
Janet Moorhead. I'm a little concerned in that, from what I can see that something like the American Legion could not spend money for an election. Yet, if they wanted to, they can go into that congressman's office and lobby for something for veterans. Because each individual veteran can't go down to Washington and go into an office and speak, that various groups join together in order to have one voice speak for them. And ways of speaking, you spend money. They spend money to send people down there to Washington to represent them, or to send them to Concord. So does this mean that these reps and these people down in Concord will no longer let these entities into their office and expect that each individual person will come in? I mean, sometimes we do have to join together to get our voices heard, and that is one thing that concerns me, because if an organization can't spend money, they shouldn't also be allowed to go into the office.
Peter? And for each person, please always state your name each time you approach the microphone. And as far as microphone technique, I think most of you have it, but
You can't talk above the microphone, you can't talk below the microphone, to the left or to the right. You gotta talk into the microphone about 2 inches away to make it work right.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Pete Martin. There's been a little confusion here. We certainly do have the right as citizens to petition our government, and whether it's local or not, that's what a democracy is about. And I read from Article 10 of the New Hampshire Constitution, government being instituted for the common benefit, protection, and security of the whole community, and not for the private interest or emolument of any one man, family, or class of men. Therefore, Whenever the ends of government are perverted and public liberty manifestly endangered, and all other means of redress are ineffectual, the people may, and of right, ought to reform the old or establish a new government. The doctrine of non-resistance against arbitrary power and oppression is absurd, slavish, and destructive of the good and happiness of mankind. This article has nothing whatsoever to do with our rights to go to Congress as a group or as individuals to state our grievances or to encourage changes in legislation. This is to keep a flood of money from disrupting and corrupting our political system. The Constitution of the United States does not mention anywhere the corporations. It doesn't even use the word corporation throughout, and it certainly never expected corporations to be treated as real human beings. In fact, at the time that the Constitution was formed, it was written, corporations had a distinct lifetime. They were chartered for a certain length of time, and then they were dissolved. There is nothing in the article that we have submitted that is going to limit our free speech, that is going to limit our access to Congress, that is going to limit our access to government. What we're asking is that we have some sanity in how much money goes into elections. And we all know that when somebody is given a great deal of money in an election, that does indeed, as Warren Rudman pointed out, influence the outcome. Thank you.
The question's been moved. That's not debatable. And it does require a two-thirds majority. So if this motion is passed, then we will go on to vote on the article itself, and we'll limit debate. All those in favor of moving the question signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Then we'll bring this article to vote. Let me do one more thing. When you do vote, please raise your voting card as you say aye. It helps with the visual and the verbal. All those in favor of Article 2, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Nay. Article 2 passes. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to establish a revolving fund pursuant to RSA 31:95-H for the purpose of police special details. All revenues received from police special details will be deposited into the fund, and the money in the fund shall be allowed to accumulate from year to year and shall not be considered part of the town's general fund unreserved fund balance. The town treasurer shall have custody of all monies in the fund and shall pay out the same only upon the order of the governing body, and no further approval is required by the legislative body to expend. Such funds may be expended only for the purpose for which the fund was created. Is there a motion? We don't go any further if there's not a motion, and you don't have to put one on there just to please me, that's for sure.
Will we pass over this article?
There's been a motion to pass over the article, and there's a second. All those in favor of passing over the article signify by saying aye. Aye.
Can I just make one point before we make a decision to pass over this article? And that is that...
Are you withdrawing your second? Mr. Freitas indicated that he didn't hear the motion and wasn't aware of what he was seconding at that time. So is there is a motion still on the floor to pass over the article. Is there a second on that motion? There's a second to that motion. So does anyone want to speak to the motion to pass over?
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to speak to it and just say that if we pass over this article, or if we fail to vote this article, we will lose a $20,000 offset that's noted in Article 7 on the warrant. So this is really money that is going to help the town save money in the long run, rather than cost the town money or create anything that's nefarious. It's just a very normal thing to do, and I think that our our finance officer could probably address it further, or Mr. Freitas.
Paul?
Yep. You just put it back on.
Go for it.
The chief will also be able to speak on this. This was brought to our attention by the Department of Revenue. This is a good way that we don't have to add this dollar amount to our bottom line at the end of the budget or inside the chief's budget. This money can only be spent to pay for details that the police department are called out on. It's 100% reimbursable by the people that they are working for when they're on detail. And to give you an example, we've already put in $53,000 in detail this year, all of which will be reimbursed and probably has been reimbursed already. But that would be $53,000 more that it would look like the police department's budget has gone up, and it really hasn't, and that's the perception that people have every year. So this just separates out that money, it puts it into its own account. As people pay us, the money goes into the account. As we bill them out, the money gets taken out. It's just a safe way to keep it separate. It separates detail versus overtime. It gives the public a better example, a better picture of how much money is spent on overtime versus how much money is really spent on reimbursable detail time. Right now, all that money shows up as overtime in the police department's budget, and you never get to see the reimbursement that goes towards that line. It's just a clean way of cleaning up the budget. It's just a housekeeping thing. And Chief, I don't know if you want to speak to it.
I was... Yes.
Not talking about the motion pass. I will withdraw my motion to pass over since somebody obviously wants to proceed on this motion. The second one will withdraw his.
Right, and I also apologize. I thought Mr. Kemp was moving the article, and I was seconding it so that we could have discussion.
Who seconded that motion? Mr. Wood, do you withdraw your second?
Let me think about that for a while. I'm very disappointed that this was presented in this way, and no background was given before we even attempted to think about this. I will.
Okay, Mr. Kent, you withdrew your motion. And so, once again, I'm going to start from the beginning on this one, and you can do whatever you would like on it, but I guess there's some confusion on the board. Somebody has to move Article 3. Is there a motion on Article 3? Okay, there's a motion for Article 3. Is it seconded? There's been a couple of seconds. Okay, is there anyone who would like to speak to speak to Article 3, and hopefully not any repetition from what we did? Chief?
Yeah, I'm the one that asked for this article. I'm finding out that the outside details are impacting my budget significantly. Specifically, this year, we're finding out, not just in Plymouth, but statewide, we're becoming the mental health system for New Hampshire. So a lot of details are being spent, or a lot of time is being spent at Spear Memorial Hospital when they have a violent mental health patient there. We originally budgeted for $15,000 in this line, and as the town administrator said, we spent $53,000 already. So that leaves me $38,000 in the hole in my budget that I need to make up. I asked for this article because it's a way where it won't affect my budget directly. Money will go in after we bill out, and then will come out when it comes time to pay the officer. The officer will get paid right from this account rather than from my budget. I hope that explains it.
Is there any further discussion on Article 3? Henry?
Henry Ahern from Plymouth, and just clarification, at what rate are all of the detail money always being paid, or are we at some point not getting reimbursed?
Chief? I was just wondering, I'm just choosing you to make that answer look like you were about to do that. Go right ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we are getting paid for that. I think the only thing that sticks out in my head that we didn't get paid for was a detail a while ago when Fairpoint had gone bankrupt at one point in time. That's about the only detail I can think of off the top of my head that we have not got paid for to date.
Homer?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Omar Ahern Jr. from Plymouth. I guess what I'm concerned about is putting things off budget. What I would want to make sure is that the people of the town know about where this money's going or not going, and that it's accounted for in the budget. I think I'm concerned about full disclosure. I'm concerned about money being, Mr. Moderator, I'm concerned about money not being fully accounted for to the people. That's what I'm concerned about. If it's not in the budget, where is it going to be? How's it going to be disclosed to the people, Mr. Moderator? Thank you.
Mr. Freitas?
Mr. Ahern, it still shows up in the following year's budget. It just won't be underneath the police department. It'll have its own line.
Mr. Moorhead, and then Patrice.
Dave Moorhead, Plymouth. All right, so we have something, we'll say, at the hospital, and you send an officer up there. Is this an after-duty officer or on duty, and do they collect both pays for being on duty and this special duty? I don't understand that.
No, it's a special duty pay. It's what they call a detail pay, and that comes that is paid directly. It's paid through the town, but the hospital, we bill the hospital for that detail time.
But would this be an officer that has already done his detail, and this is extra for him?
That's correct.
And would he still be covered under the town if he got hurt or something like that?
Yes, he is, because he's paid through
Okay.
the town. We're still insured if anything should happen to that officer.
That was one of my main concerns.
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Chief, I'm just wondering, would this fund also contain things like the underage drinking grants?
No, by statute, it can't.
Okay.
It's RSA 31:95-H.
Okay, so this is specifically for what it is here. It's not something that other funds might come in and out.
That's correct. It's only for special details.
Okay, well, I definitely, I think it's a good idea. It's easier to keep track of as a housekeeping measure. I fully support it. Thank you.
There's been Mr. Kent can speak first. He was heading to the microphone, but I'll take your motion up next if it looks like there's more discussion.
Is the rate of officer pay spelled out in the collective bargaining agreement?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
We have a motion to move the question, a vote by two-thirds, and we have a second on that. All those in favor of moving the question? Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Well, that was pretty unanimous. I think sometimes we defeat ourselves by having two votes on too many articles, but that brings us to Article 3. All those in favor of Article 3, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Article 3 passes. Which brings us to Article 4, to see if the town will vote to authorize the appointment of not more than 5 alternate land use board members to the town's land use boards, as is authorized by New Hampshire RSA 673:6. Is there a motion? Article 4 has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion on Article 4? Ms. Scott?
Mr. Moderator, I'm just wondering if someone could explain why this is on, if it's something that had been overlooked in the past, or also to clarify that what is meant is 5 alternates each for each land use board. We have 2 boards, the planning board and the zoning board. So as the sentence reads, it might be a little ambiguous. So could we clarify that?
Is there somebody that could speak to that?
This article is, in essence, kind of a housekeeping article. The select board has been appointing regular and alternate land use board members to both planning and zoning in the case of regular members since 1960s, and in the case of alternates since 1983. So there's a more than 30-year precedent set on this. This is, as I said, a housekeeping article. We have not identified the year in which the vote was taken on this, but obviously the select board didn't just one day start authorizing or appointing alternates to our land use boards. So this is really, again, housekeeping.
Ms. Scott?
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Moderator, just to clarify, though, from what the sentence reads, we are talking about the select board appointing 5 members each, 5 alternates on each board, whether it's planning board, up to 5 members. For
Yes.
the planning board and for the zoning board.
Both boards.
Okay, thank you.
Is there further discussion on Article 4? Seeing none, we'll bring that to a vote. All those in favor of Article 4, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Article 4 passes. Which brings us to Article 5. Article 5 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,537,634 for FY 14-15 general governmental expenses as follows. Salaries, fees, and expenses, Selectmen's Office, $377,692. Election registration vital statistics, Town Clerk's Office, $156,755. Financial administration, $248,519. Reappraisal of property, $75,000. Contract services, legal and others, $158,786. Personnel administration, $3,500. Planning and zoning, $129,984. Land use enforcement, $85,441. General government buildings, $59,000. Cemeteries, $45,210. Miscellaneous insurance, workers' comp, liability, and unemployment, $126,402. Emergency management, $11,500. Care of trees, $2,000. Debt service, SRF landfill closure, $56,845. Education and training expense, $1,000. This amount is to also be offset in the amount of $16,000 from the Perpetual Care Fund. Is there a motion on Article 5?
So moved. Second.
Article 5 has been moved and seconded. May we hear from the Budget Committee on Article 5? John.
Mr. Moderator, John Randlett, Chairman of the Budget Committee. The Budget Committee recommends passage of the following appropriations and the remaining articles, all of them.
Okay, so that's, when I forget to call the Budget Committee each article, you're saying that the Budget Committee has recommended all of the appropriation articles?
All of them,
Okay,
yes.
thank you. Is there discussion on Article 5? Seeing no discussion, it'll bring Article 5 to a vote. All those in favor of Article 5, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Article 5 passes. Article 6, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $93,245 for fiscal year 14-15 welfare assistance as follows. Welfare officer, $18,245. Welfare vendor payments, $75,000. Is there a motion? Article 6 has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing no discussion, that brings us to a vote on Article 6. All those in favor of Article 6, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Article 6 passes.
Mr. Moderator, I move to restrict reconsideration of Articles 2 through 6.
Is there a second? There's been a motion and a second to restrict reconsideration of Articles 2 through 6. A motion to restrict reconsideration means that if there is, later in the meeting, if there's any motion to reconsider any one of these articles, that it would have to occur at a meeting to be held not sooner than 7 days after this meeting. All those in favor of the motion to restrict reconsideration of Articles 2 through 6, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion to restrict reconsideration of Articles 2 through 6 passes. I wish you'd choose some different words for that one. Which brings us to Article 7. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,670,828 for fiscal year 14-15 for public safety, police, and parking as follows. Police Department, $1,183,739. Parking, $114,292. Dispatch, $372,797. This amount will be offset in the amount of $80,000 from the parking fund. If warrant Article 3 passes, this amount will also be offset by an additional $20,000, and we did pass Article 3. Is there a motion for Article 7? Is there a second? Article 7 has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion on Article 7? Marcia.
I'm Marcia Blaine. Chief, can you tell me, sorry, Mr. Moderator, can the chief tell me, how many people are in the department now? It's a lot of money, so I was just trying to get a general sense of how many people it covers and what kinds of things you in terms of people it might be dealing with.
Well, there are, as far as patrol force goes, there's normally 10 of us full-timers. We're short right now. We're in a hiring process for one more. There are 5 dispatchers. I have a prosecutor, a secretary for him, the police department secretary. We also have the parking enforcement officers. We have the school crossing guards. And I think I got everybody.
Is there further discussion on Article 7? Seeing none, we'll bring Article 7 to a vote. All those in favor of Article 7 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, signify by saying nay. Article 7 passes. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,336,796 for fiscal year 14-15 public safety, fire, and ambulance as follows. Fire Department, $1,213,171. Ambulance, $123,625. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Article 8 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on Article 8? Seeing no discussion, it'll bring us to a vote. All those in favor of Article 8, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, signify by saying nay. Article 8 passes. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $380,117 for fiscal year 14-15 for sanitation as follows. Recycling solid waste disposal, $376,817. Penny Baker Solid Waste District dues, $3,300. Is there a motion? It's been moved. Is there a second in Article 9? Okay. Is there discussion on Article 9? Mr. Ahern.
Henry Ahern, Plymouth. Just as by normal number, what was the number on recycle income this year?
Okay, the response or my understanding it was the question, what was the number on recycling, which I assume meant the income from recycling, and I understand the response to be $114,000. Is that correct? And please pass the mic along the front. Is that the correct amount?
If the question is how much revenue for the recycling center, it was $114,000.
Is there further discussion on Article 9? Which brings us to a vote. All those in favor of Article 9, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, signify by saying nay. Article 9 passes. Article 10, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $858,521 for fiscal year 14-15 for the Highway Department as follows. Highway Department, $803,521. Street lighting, $55,000. Is there a motion? Second. Article 10 has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Mr. Moorhead.
Are we going to get any more of these street lights changed to LEDs to cut down the power use? I personally like them a lot better than that red stuff when you're trying to drive out there in a snowstorm. But and I'd also like to thank all of our safety service crews and the town highway and stuff for the job they've done this winter. They've had a rough winter.
The replacement of the regular street lights with LEDs is sort of a systematic plan that's being done over the next few years as the budget permits. But yes, it is being done, and there is a plan that we are working on with the electric co-op.
Is there further discussion on Article 10? Which brings us to a vote. All those in favor of Article 10, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, signify by saying nay. Article 10 passes. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,010,941 for fiscal year 14-15 for departmental operations as follows. Parks and Recreation, $575,057. Library, $405,543. Patriotic Purposes, $4,000. Band Concerts, $6,000. Town Common Traffic Islands, $4,000. Friends of the Arts, $100. Airport, $6,241. Health Enforcement, $10,000. This amount will be offset in the amount of $6,241 from the Airport Fund. This amount will also be offset by $16,000 donation to the Library Trust Fund. Is there a motion on Article 11? Article 11 has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Ms. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just was noticing that the library line is up significantly from last year, and I'd just like an explanation of why. I see also that it's offset, which is a good thing. I think it's a good idea to put the offsets in the warrant article, but I just wondered what we're increasing at the library.
Ms. Holt?
Tony Holt, Chair of the Library Trustees. As most of you know, we have doubled the size of the library, which means we have increased the amount needed for utilities. We have changed certain things that happen there. We have increased the number of people who are in the library and the ways in which it is used, which was the very reason why we did what we did. And we ask all of you to do what you did for the bond issue. We have tried as hard as we can for more years than before the expansion to stay flat funded. And we did that to our own detriment in many cases. We have reached the point now where we can't do that any longer. We have finally, I think, sorted out the greener utilities issue, the heat and the cooling. And we have incurred some other expenses, or we had incurred some other expenses, which now, through really careful work, we have been able to change. Things like the inspections for everything that needs to be inspected, whether it is the sprinkler system and the new elevator and the rest of this. So we hope going forward that we will not ever have to do this again. But it has been a complicated 3 years as we opened that and as we dedicated it in May of 2010, and we simply have had to spend some of this money. We've also had to spend money on snow removal that we had not had to spend in the past because the bank did the snow removal and the town doesn't do the snow removal, and so we had to sort that out. We in the bank have reached an accommodation for this year. We're not sure what will go forward. So we're not sitting out there burning dollars. We are trying to do the very best we can with this wonderful new building, and it's just had some shakedown cruise time. And therefore, the trustees have decided that some of that was important for security and for the way the building is to be used, and we are willing to put this in at this point with the hope that we do not have to do that again, that we have gotten it sorted, as they say. So that's my explanation to all of you.
Is there further discussion on Article 11? Seeing none, that brings Article 11 to a vote. All those in favor of Article 11 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. Article 11 passes.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
I move to restrict reconsideration of Articles 7 through 11.
There's been a motion and a second. It's been moved and seconded to restrict reconsideration for Articles 7 through 11. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Articles 7 through 11, the motion to restrict reconsideration passed. We're now on Article 12. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $44,000 to fund fiscal year 14-15 capital land and improvements as follows. Landfill monitoring and testing, $6,000. Selectmen's copier machine lease purchase, $8,000. Fire building maintenance and repair, $30,000. Pursuant to RSA 32:7, Roman numeral 6, these will be non-lapsing, non-transferable appropriations and will not lapse until the earlier of 2017 or when the respective project purchase is complete. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Second. Article 12 has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing no discussion, we'll bring Article 12 to a vote. All those in favor of Article 12, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, please signify by saying nay. Article 12 passes. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $85,000 to fund the following item. Highway, replace 2003 F-550, $85,000. And to authorize the withdrawal of $85,000 from the Highway Heavy Equipment Capital Reserve Fund established for this purpose. Pursuant to RSA 32:7, Roman numeral 6, this will be a non-lapsing, non-transferable appropriation and will not lapse until the earlier of 2017 or when the respective project purchase is complete. Is there a motion on Article 13? Article 13 has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion on Article 13? Seeing no discussion, we'll bring Article 13 to a vote. All those in favor of Article 13, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Article 13 passes. Article 14, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $31,000 to fund the following item: recycling, replace skid steer, $31,000, and to authorize the withdrawal of $31,000 from the Recycling Equipment Capital Reserve Fund established for this purpose. Pursuant to RSA 32:7, Roman numeral 6, this will be a non-lapsing, non-transferable appropriation and will not lapse until the earlier of 2007 or when the respective project purchase is complete. Is there a motion?
Second.
Article 14 has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing none, we'll bring Article 14 to a vote. All those in favor of Article 14, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Article 14 passes. Article 15, to see if the town will vote to change the purpose of the existing Recycling Equipment Capital Reserve Fund to the Recycling Equipment and Property Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund, and further designate the Select Board as agents to expend from said fund. This is a two-thirds vote required. Is there a motion for Article 15?
Second.
Article 15 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Mr.
Can we
Ahern,
give an explanation, please?
is there somebody at the front table who wants to explain this? Mr. Freitas.
Yes, Mr. Ahern. Mr. Ray came to me several months ago and asked who the Ray is at the recycling center. This money was originally meant to replace 3 skid steers up at the recycling center. It's unfortunate that we don't do the amount of recycling that we used to do, because we don't take it as much from other towns. So he really only needs to replace 1 skid steer, and being as Mike is, he would like to take the remainder of that money. There's other things that need to be done at the recycling center, and rather than raise the money for those other things, he'd rather take the money that's left over from the skid steers that he doesn't need and apply it to those. If you notice, the roadway leading up to the recycling center is in pretty poor condition. The cardboard building is also falling apart. His walls are coming apart at the seams. So there's several things that he would like to do with that money in the future.
Mr. Ahern.
Henry Ahern, how much money is in that account? Save me, I'll go back and look it up.
$46,696.
Okay, and so with this, if I understand this article, that would allow the selectmen to expend all that money without further coming to this body, and also could possibly remove everything to buy skid steers and so forth in the future that we have put into the capital reserve. Is that correct?
I'm going to have the finance director that worked with the Department of Revenue to help Mike with that, explain how spending agents work.
Most of you don't know who I am. I'm Ann Avier. I'm the new finance director, and thanks for allowing me to work for you. Agents to expend should be put on all future capital reserves to allow the selectmen to expend money as something comes up. If we have an emergency during the year, that's when the money will be spent. But in answer to your question, yes, you can spend everything that's in there with this warrant article. And fixing that roadway is probably going to cost the amount of money that's left. Does that answer your question?
My concern is over the years, Henry Ahern, my concern is over the years, we have put money into this account to buy the skid steer that we just voted to purchase as a capital reserve. And I have a concern that we're now changing that and we're no longer going to have a capital reserve fund, which a lot of us worked very hard to have a capital reserve fund to do this. And now we're kind of eliminating that capital reserve fund and just allow it to be an expending item.
Mr. Quinn.
Mr. Freitas.
No, Mr. Ahern. The capital reserve fund for Mike to be able to save money for skid steers in the future will remain. He can still save money in the future. The remaining money that he's going to have, which would be about $15,000, $16,000, he would like to use that remainder money for some other things. He can only use it, the selectmen can only have him expend it on what he's asking to do with it. What the legislative body is going to allow him to do tonight. If they say it has to stay for skid steers only, he'll only use it for skid steers.
I'd just like to add one thing to what Paul said, too, Mr. Moderator, if I could.
Sure, and then Ms. Scott, after that.
I'd just like to add that what this does is, if he gets an estimate, for example, to get the road fixed to the recycling center, that then avoids us having to call a special town meeting in June or July for you to authorize us to spend the $15,000 remaining in the fund, or whatever the balance is, to complete a project like that. Or this just allows us to make decisions about the remaining balance after this $31,000 skid steer is purchased, without calling a special town meeting at the additional expense to the town that always involves.
Okay, I had Ms. Scott was going to talk before Signature wanted to talk.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would just say, I'm not worried about it at all. It's just, Mr. Aaron, we're still going to have a capital reserve fund, and I know you're concerned because we had such a hard time saving money in the past. But this just gives a little flexibility to the board and to our recycling center manager to take care of needs up there. I fully support it. I don't see a problem with it.
Ma'am.
Bill Hool. I'm a member of the Trust Oversight Committee, re-elected, as you heard earlier in the evening. I just wanted to remark that any funds that come out of the capital reserve accounts have to be requested through the trustee of trust. And those requests come from the Board of Selectmen and elaborate on what the purposes of those funds are going to be expended toward. So in effect, we have some visibility on the expense of any capital funds, whether it's dedicated to the recycling center, as this one would be, and that's a bit of a check and balance.
Ma'am?
Maggie Mumford. I just want to say that we need to remember that this is on the backdrop of revenues of over $100,000 every year for years. And this is giving the flexibility needed to repurpose, which is what the recycling center is all about. Thank you.
I'm going to call that out of order because I think we're going to bring it to a vote. I'm going to ask one more time if there's any discussion, further discussion on Article 15. If there's no further discussion, we'll bring Article 15 to a vote. All those in favor of Article 15, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, signify by saying nay. Article 15 passes by the two-thirds majority that's required.
Mr. Moderator, I move to restrict reconsideration of Articles 12 through 15.
There's been a motion and a second to restrict reconsideration of Articles 12 through 15. Is there any discussion on that article, on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, signify by saying nay. The motion to restrict reconsideration of Articles 12 through 15 passes. Article 16, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,200 to fund the following item. Parks and Recreation turf tractor walk-behind mower, $5,200. Pursuant to RSA 32:7, Roman numeral 6, this will be a non-lapsing, non-transferable appropriation and will not lapse until the earlier of 2017 or when the respective project purchase is complete. Is there a motion? Article 16 has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion on Article 16? Oh, yes, Larry.
This new mower will replace the 2004 that we have. It is a 3-blade, 4-foot wide mower deck. It's used for the Common, the Riverfront Park, Town Hall, the Plymouth Inn, formerly the green area there on South Main Street, Fox Park, Winter Street, and the Town Library. And we believe the cost advantage would be to trade in the machine while still holding a good trade value and minimizing our repair costs and downtime.
Is there further discussion on Article 16? Seeing none, we'll bring Article 16 to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, signify by saying nay. Article 16 passes. Article 17, to see if the town will vote to discontinue the Highland Street Capital Reserve Fund with said funds to be, with accumulated interest to date of withdrawal, to be transferred to the municipality's general fund. Is there a motion? Article 17 has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Mr. Ahern. Mr. Ahern is asking for an explanation. Is there somebody at the front? Ms. Scarborough.
This article was actually put into our warrant under the guidance of the Department of Revenue Administration. And if you read on to Articles 18 and 19, we first dissolve the fund and then we reestablish and repurpose it in the next two articles. So this is just something that has to be done in order to move on to the use of that money in the next two articles.
Is there further discussion on Article 17? Seeing none, we'll bring Article 17 to a vote. All those in favor of Article 17, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, signify by saying nay. Article 17 passes. Article 18, to see if the town will vote to establish a capital reserve fund under the provision of RSA 35:1 for the purpose of Highland Street road repairs and to raise and appropriate the sum of $485,000 for this purpose. The said funds to come from the fund balance and no amount to be raised from taxation. Further, to designate the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend from this fund. Is there a motion? Article 18 has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Mr. Ahern.
Which section of Highland Street are we doing this year? Or is it for the whole thing? Because for a long while, we were doing a piece of it, and then the next piece of it, and the next piece of it.
We weren't going to do any part of Highland Street this year because the middle section seems to be holding up as it is now. What we wanted to do is wait until the middle section actually needs repairs because of the cost of the repairs. So we're looking at sometime in the future when Highland Street deteriorates to a point, that's when it should be repaired.
And this is an article to establish a capital reserve fund. So that seems a... Is there further discussion on Article 18? Seeing none, we'll bring it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 18, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, signify by saying nay. Article 18 passes. Article 19, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $125,000 to fund the following capital item. Improve road construction, $125,000. This amount to be offset by $125,000 from fund balance and no amount to be raised from taxation. Pursuant to RSA 32:7, Roman numeral 6, these will be non-lapsing, non-transferable appropriations and will not lapse until the respective project/purchase is complete or in 5 years, whichever is less. Is there a motion? Article 19 has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Mr. Hool.
Bill Hool. In light of the road conditions that exist in this town over the deferred maintenance that has occurred in the last 2 to 3 years, and given this winter's hardship on these roadways, when the snow melts and the frost comes out of the ground, this $125,000 for road maintenance, I think, is grossly inadequate. And we're going to pay the piper down the road twofold for deferring this maintenance that's not being done on a timely basis. Peter has done a good job with the money that he has had, but the work that he could do with his crews or through contractors has been minimal. And this is going to catch up with us several-fold down the road.
Is there further discussion on Article 19? Seeing none, we'll bring Article 19 to a vote. All those in favor of Article 19, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, signify by saying nay. Article 19 passes. Article 20, to see if the town will authorize the Select Board to enter into a 3-year, $125,562 lease to purchase agreement for the purpose of lease purchasing 3 police cruisers and to raise and appropriate the sum of $41,854 to fund the first year's payment. This is year 1 of a 3-year lease to purchase agreement. The lease agreement contains a non-appropriation clause. Pursuant to RSA 32:7, Roman numeral 6, this will be a non-lapsing, non-transferable appropriation and will not lapse until the earlier of 2018 or when the respective project purchase is complete. Is there a motion? Article 20 has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Mr. Moorhead.
How are the new lighter cruisers and stuff holding up to duty on the roads compared to like the heavier cruisers that we used to get?
Based on the fact that they're all-wheel drive, they are holding up really well. In this article, however, we are switching to the SUV cruisers, and we're no longer going with the sedans. Especially given this winter time, we definitely need the ground clearance for that.
Is there further discussion on Article 20? Seeing none, we'll bring Article 20 to a vote. All those in favor of Article 20, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, signify by saying nay. Article 20 passes.
Mr. Moderator, I move to restrict reconsideration of Articles 16 through 20.
There's been a motion to restrict reconsideration of Articles 16 through 20. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to restrict reconsideration of Articles 16 through 20 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, signify by saying nay. So that motion passes. Which brings us to Article 21. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 for the purpose of continuing the remediation of the gasoline leak adjacent to the highway garage. This sum is 95% offset by state oil discharge and disposal cleanup fund reimbursements, having a net cost of the town of approximately $1,250. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Article 21 has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? I think you moved it just so you could get to the question, Henry. Yes.
So I can ask the question that I already know the answer to, but I'll ask anyway. How many more years are we going to do this, Paul?
Mr. Ahern, you better sit down. This is our last year.
We are going to have to figure out something to replace this, though, because we wouldn't... There you go. Okay. Mr. Moorhead is the solution. Is there further discussion on Article 21? Seeing none, we'll bring it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 21, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, signify by saying nay. Article 21 passes. Article 22, to see if the town will vote to add to the existing capital reserve funds under the provisions of RSA 35:1 for the following purposes and raise and appropriate the respective sums totaling $196,880 to be placed in said funds. Town reval, $20,000. Replace 2006 ambulance, $40,000. Highway heavy equipment, $35,000. Building police maintenance repair replace, $25,000. Material handling equipment highway, $25,000. Replace 87 fire engine, $44,380. Replace breathing apparatus, $7,500. Pursuant to RSA 32:7, Roman numeral 6, these will be non-lapsing, non-transferable appropriations and will not lapse until the earlier of 2017 or when the respective project purchase is complete. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Article 22 has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing no discussion, we'll bring it to a vote. All those in favor of Article 22, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, signify by saying nay. Article 22 passes. Article 23, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $136,971 to fund payment number 4 of the library expansion project. This amount will be offset in the amount of $136,971 from library donations currently held by the town treasurer. Is there a motion? Article 23 has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing no discussion, we'll bring Article 23 to a vote. All those in favor of Article 23, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, please signify by saying nay. Article 23 passes. Article 24, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $89,432,000 for the below-listed agencies. Animal Control Agreement with Humane Society, $6,500. Regional Planning Commission dues, $4,742. Baker River Watershed, $200. Pemmy River Local Advisory Committee, $250. Pemmy Baker Community Health Agency, $15,000. Grafton County Senior Citizens, $15,000. Tri-County Community Action, $4,300. Voices Against Violence, $4,000. Red Cross, $1,500. Pemmy Youth Center, $3,000. Genesis Lakes Region Mental Health, $7,500. Katy, $6,000. CASA Court-Appointed Child Advocates, $800. Pemmy Bridge House, $10,000. Midstate Health, $6,000. Plymouth Chamber of Commerce, $2,600. Conservation Commission, $2,040. Is there a motion? Article 24 has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Ms. Scott.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, I'd just like to know, was there a nonprofit review committee this year looking over what was submitted? A nonprofit review committee? Was that in effect this year?
Yes, there was.
Great, thank you. Mr. Moderator, just so everyone else knows, for many years, we've had a small committee that looks over all the nonprofits, submit their information to them, and it's a check and balance, so we have a nice, fair way of reviewing the requests. So I appreciate that.
Is there further discussion on Article 24? Seeing none, we'll bring Article 24 to a vote. All those in favor of Article 24, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, signify by saying nay. Article 24 passes. And before I get to Article 25, I just want to let you know there's one or two things that will be brought forward under Article 26. So just keep that in mind, and we'll stay assembled to the extent we can to hear what comes up under Article 26. Article 25, to see if the town will vote to discontinue the following capital reserve funds, with said funds and accumulated interest to date of withdrawal to be transferred to the town's general fund, RSA 35:3 and RSN 35:16-A. Ambulance defibrillators, capital reserve fund, $2,088.91. HVAC Town Hall Capital Reserve Fund, 5 cents. Hydraulic Rescue Capital Reserve Fund, $13,655.65. Ambulance Rescue Capital Reserve Fund, $1,296.17. PB Cam Equipment and Facilities Capital Reserve Fund, $12.41. Is there a motion? Article 25 has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Mr. Kent.
David Kent, does this mean we're not going to buy these things in the future?
Mr. Freitas?
No, Mr. Kent, these are lines that was specifically started for specific items, and when we go back to redo it, the HVAC system in the town hall, for example, or something for the fire department, they get reestablished. They have sat idle, so lines sit idle for about 6 years. We try to do some house cleaning and clear them out, and then reestablish them.
I didn't answer my question. Are we going to buy these in the future? I know we're not going to buy the 5-cent item. I mean, that's clear enough. But the other ones?
I can start to try to come down on the ambulance defibs. I do believe that the fire department handles that differently now.
To answer your question, some of the items from the fire department, yes, down the road, we will need to buy some, but not in the near future. The defibs we have, they can be upgraded the way that they're built now. They can be upgraded. They don't become obsolete. We have 2 rescue tools that are serviced every year, and they require minimal maintenance. So, I mean, they're gas engines. They're still supported, so we don't have it in place to replace them anytime soon. But down the road, yes, at some point they will get to the point where we have to replace them.
Well, my only comment is, if we're going to buy them down the road, shouldn't we be setting a little money aside each year like this, so that when that occasion comes, we've got the money there?
There is a plan that once that date starts hitting, then I'll start putting money in there. This account was created way before my time, when we bought the 2 that we have currently, and it stayed there dormant. And then Mr. Freitas called me up and he asked me about it, and I said, that must have been something that was put in a long time ago when we first opened that up.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Ahern.
Henry Ahern, and I'm just curious, is those things that are for the health, the ambulance, the fire, or almost all the ambulance, shouldn't we maybe be moving those into another capital reserve, or at least make an amendment to place them against the ambulance budget in this, rather than just putting them into the general fund of the town?
You're looking for a response? I heard the word amendment, but you're looking for a response.
I'll have to get 5 people to do an amendment, right? Or can I do an amendment on it?
Any one person can offer an amendment.
Okay?
If it's complicated, we need it in writing. If
No,
it's not,
I would like to make an amendment that instead of it transferring to the town's general fund, that those things that have to do with the ambulance and the rescue be placed into the, used to offset the ambulance and rescue budget item.
Okay, we have a motion to amend Article 25, and the amendment would be, instead of the money being transferred to the town's general fund, the last word of it, would be the ambulance and rescue items would be, money would be transferred to offset the ambulance and rescue budget. And is that this upcoming fiscal year budget?
Mr. Moderator.
Is it?
Discussion?
Well, we have a motion and we have a second. Is there discussion on the amendment? So do you want to speak to the amendment, Paul?
Mr. Ahern, they do offset each department. Our budget is a bottom line budget, and even though we break it down for you in a March format in this way here by warrant articles, that offset will still offset the bottom line of the budget, and Chief Clarkson will start saving money again next year. These are items that he was able to pick to help offset his budget. We can do it your way also. We can, it's now going to sit.
I understand that may be what the intent is, but I feel that this body should be able to say that it goes there rather than just in the general fund.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Yes, Mr. Clay.
You're transferring it back to yourself. You're moving it from this pocket to this pocket. You're not doing anything by doing this.
Is there further discussion on the amendment? Does everyone understand the amendment? The amendment is to, instead of transfer the money received from these funds to the town general fund, it would be the town transfer to the town's ambulance and rescue items that are listed to the ambulance and rescue budget for fiscal year 14-15. Which brings us to a vote on that. All those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, please signify by saying nay. Nay. The amendment fails. Is there any further discussion on the main article? That'll bring us to a discussion on Article 20, and a vote on Article 25. All those in favor of Article 25 as originally written in the warrant, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Article 25 as originally written passes.
Mr. Moderator, I move to restrict reconsideration of Articles 21 through 25.
So we have a motion to restrict reconsideration of Articles 21 through 25, and that's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Mr. Moorhead, you're not up to discuss that. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration on Articles 21 through 25, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, signify by saying nay. The motion passes. Which brings us to Article 26. And I know that, Kathy, would you like to speak to that? Or, Mr. Moorhead, you have something under Article 26?
Yes.
Would you like to speak to that now?
What's going on the new section of the firehouse? How are we doing on the new section of the firehouse?
We're moving right along with that. Currently, we have an electrician in there addressing multiple issues that we found with the wiring. We've increased the smoke detection and CO detection to come up to code. Currently, just barely today, got another final, not a final draft, but another draft on how we can alter what was the old doctor's office to accommodate 3 offices without taking out a bunch of walls and creating a bunch of dust and work. The plan that was just barely given to me this afternoon, I feel has a good flow to it and will work, and it's not going to cost an awful lot of money to get us there. So we're pretty much in the planning stages, and we are correcting some of the deficiencies that we found within the building. And if anybody would like to see it, Monday through Friday, stop down, I'll give you a tour.
Ms. Benwood?
Kathy Bentwood. I live in Plymouth. I run the Bridge House Homeless Shelter and Veterans Advocacy Program. The Bridge House has an unconditional commitment to anyone who's ever been in the military. That unconditional commitment matches their unconditional commitment the day they raise their regarding this. Is that clear?
And the sense of the vote is whether they think this is a...
Whether they would welcome a project
welcome
like
it,
this.
okay.
Exactly.
Are there any questions for Kathy? Ms. Moorhead?
What happened to that zoning thing down in Ashland about putting the big man?
I will end that right now by saying it is probably one of the most disgraceful times I've ever spent in any town. So we purposely started looking at property where there were no residents that were abutters, because what drove Ashland was fear. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's one of the...
That's it.
Mr. Kelly? The question is, where on Tenny Mountain Highway are they looking?
Probably the most ideal place that I've seen at this moment is Brian Young's property up behind Boulder Point, Walmart, and Midstate. This is tax, this generates revenue, this generates taxes for the town of Plymouth. Okay.
Ms. Scott?
Would you explain the population you mentioned marginalized? What are we...
Well, it seems like there's a lot of fear around homeless, so I decided not to use it, but it's homeless. It's okay? Okay. This aspect of Soldier On is not a nonprofit. This is a for-profit arm of their program. They do have shelters and they have hospitals on the VA sites, but this particular permanent housing is not a nonprofit. That's why it generates revenue for the town in which it's located.
Are there further questions? Mr. Moorhead?
I understand that this is, it was told to me at one time that this is to cover all of Grafton County. Then I was also explained that the Veterans Administration is not backing this because it's too far out from either VA hospital, and that there would be a transportation problem. And I suggested that maybe it be built in Grafton County, town of Grafton, Enfield, or Hayden, where there is transportation that would go right by a VA hospital. And I was asked if that was paid out of County of Grafton.
This project is basically for New Hampshire vets. So far at the Bridge House, I've served about somewhere around 47 veterans in the last 2.5 years. The vast majority are all from New Hampshire. They're all from this area. They're from the North Country. Right now, because we had started this project in full hopes that it would be welcomed, there is approximately $8 million earmarked through the VA and other resources for this project. That money disappears August 1 if we don't have a shovel in the ground. So the VA does support this. The VA does not send drivers out to the Bridge House, so the Bridge House transports the patients to the VA. So we do a hell of a lot for these vets, and I don't stand on ceremony when it comes to waiting for the VA to pick up anything. We do it. I buy their prescriptions. We take them to their appointments. They're seen beautifully at Midstate and our hospital, and I couldn't be prouder of the way Plymouth treats these people. They're just fantastic, and I think we're really missing an opportunity, and more than that, I think we're missing an obligation.
Are there further questions? Mr. Kelly?
As far as tax rights are concerned, do you feel that commercial buildings up there would probably bring in more taxes in Plymouth than private sector would be? Number one. Number two, they've been concerned about the water tax fee on any highway and for retail stores. And I would think that all the personnel that are going to be on those projects would demand a lot more water than retail stores from one
Yeah, I mean, I can't answer that question for you knowledgeably, but Soldier On is really a class outfit, and they come up with their surveyors. They're not going to do anything that's not going to work.
Okay, we have a question on the bleachers.
I can't
Ma'am?
answer that.
My question for you, Kathy, is, are we talking building an apartment building? And if we are talking about building an apartment building, are we talking about apartments for single people, or are we talking apartments for families?
This aspect of this project is for single people.
Sam?
Quite a few years ago. Could you tell me what the target number for the homeless veterans who might occupy this facility in Plymouth?
I think right now the target number is between 40 and 50. The size of the units are about approximately 500 square feet, in that range. Additionally, I think we're also, one of the needs that really has gone unmet is assisted living. Right now I've got 2 vets in wheelchairs, 2 on walkers, 1 with a cane, so I think assisted living is also something that we should be looking at.
Ms. Kendall?
For any population, whatever it is, homeless, home, transition, whatever it is, it's very difficult, and we'll be done for some time now. There's not the state support, there's not the aid support, there's not homeless shelter support, there's just not enough of it. I know that we deal with homeless children, transportation some of the time, and maybe something. We deal with VA, we deal with appropriate, we deal with all the other agencies who deal with this population as a transitional population, which we would like all to be. And as I say, the hope is always the transition as much as possible to move on to independent living. The whole thing about independent living is you got to have transportation and have it. That's just where the whole transportation is.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point. However, it's these projects 100%. And turn that phone off. And for every 10 veterans that we have in one of these centers, facilities, apartments, you get a VA van. Grant right this. We have converted our 575 square foot garage into a really great little apartment for a veteran. And you guys, I've got permission here. Vinny was in the Army for 4 years, Vietnam-era veteran. He was in Okinawa. He's been at the Bridge House for 2 years, waiting for housing to open up at Plymouth Terrace. And he walks to Hannaford's, where he has worked as a bagger for as long as I've known him. Vinny, I was told 5 months ago, Vinny was not a candidate for a VASH, a Veterans Assisted Supported Housing Voucher, and the VA has these, and it pays for rent. And then this past week, we got a call. Vinny is a candidate, so he will be moving in to our little apartment. He has a little cat, and he is thrilled. So I'm very happy to share that with you. And so anyway, so we only have like 39 or 40 more to go, and we're there.
Mr. Kelly.
Non-profit or almost non-profit people or veterans or whatever, they all seem to come to Plymouth. And it's not only the building that costs money, but the services that they need. They need the ambulances, they need the police, they need the fire, and they need all these other things. Is all of that expense considered the fact that it's not really a non-profit organization?
I can tell you right now that what I consider success at the Bridge House is that the police haven't come, the ambulance hasn't come, and the fire department hasn't come. So we minimally use any of these services. There's lots of things I can't defend, and I see a lot of waste. But when it comes to people who have sworn allegiance, I actually don't think we can do enough. So when you say nonprofit or whatever, this is the whatever. This is not the nonprofit. This is who we have an obligation to.
Sam.
What did I think? Mrs. Bedford was looking for a sense of...
That's all, you're right.
Well, he is looking for a sense of the meeting. Are you calling the question? Thank you. Okay. We'll bring this to a vote. And what is the sense of the meeting for Ms. Bentwood's proposal to establish veterans, housing for veterans, as she's described it? Yes. Yeah, are we, yes, welcome for this project. This project can come here. We're just looking whether we welcome it or not. She's looking for a sense of the community. And how's the best way to phrase it? How many feel that the town should welcome this veterans housing to the town of Plymouth? Please signify by saying aye. Those who would not welcome it, please signify by saying nay. I think that there's a sense that this is supported. And if somebody would, if you'd be willing to indulge me for a couple of minutes, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to serve as the Plymouth moderator. It's been a privilege to participate in this role, that role in town meetings and at elections. Serving as moderator has strengthened my conviction that the rights of citizens to express their views and the use of the democratic process to make decisions are the hallmark of good government. Town meeting is your meeting. It doesn't belong to the moderator. My rules that are in the town report each year, I consider the rule number 2 to be the most significant one for these meetings. The point here I'm trying to get to. So, and also please stand and remain standing if you have ever helped set up this room for town meeting, if you've operated cameras to record town meeting, or if you've offered information to the meeting as a town employee, board member, or committee member, or if you've spoken as a resident on a matter before the meeting. And basically, this is how democracy succeeds. Look around. Thank you all for participating. And this meeting... Yes, Sam. It's been my pleasure, but thank you. And I know of nothing further to come before the meeting, so we are adjourned. Thank you all.